The NCI test. What is this thing? Well, NCI stands for Narrative Credibility Index, and Chase Hughes studied hundreds of psyops, government propaganda, corporate lies, social media manipulation, all of it. And he found 20 patterns that appear consistently in every psyop. Things like timing, emotional manipulation, tribalism, specific messaging. 20 questions. Score each 1 through 5. Total above 70, that's a psyop. Below 40, probably legit. Between 40 and 70, that's the most dangerous of all, because that's a psyop based around the truth, but with an agenda, and that agenda is never to help you. Okay, that's the scoring system to keep in mind, 0 to 100. Here we go. October 10th, 1990. Now, fossils like me will remember this. A 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl named Naria testified before Congress. She was volunteering at a hospital when Iraqi soldiers stormed in.
The second week after an invasion, I volunteered at the Al-Adan hospital with 12 other women. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators. It was horrifying. I could not help but think of my nephew, who, if born premature, might have died that day as well.
Now, Congress demanded action. Senators called for war. And a few months later, the United States was at war with Iraq. So, let's run the test on that story. Timing, 5 out of 5. Her testimony landed exactly when the Bush administration needed public support for a war that nobody wanted. Emotional manipulation, 5 out of 5. It doesn't get more emotional than dead babies. That's psychological napalm. Uniform messaging, 5 out of 5. Every news outlet told the story the same way, with the same language, same talking points. There was no independent reporting. Missing information, 5 out of 5. There were no other witnesses, no follow-up interviews, no verification allowed. Authority pressure, 5 out of 5. This was congressional testimony, not some rumor on Usenet.
Did you just say Usenet?
It was 1990. A lot of the internet in the 80s and 90s was Usenet. You know, news groups.
No. I know what Usenet is. Let me ask you 2 questions,
Go ahead.
1, were you on the internet before 1990?
Yes.
2, could you find a date for prom?
No.
Uh-huh.
Now, we could run through all 20 questions for this, but you can already see the pattern. The final score was 88 out of 100. That's an overwhelming sign of a psyop, and that's exactly what it was, though we didn't know it at the time. 10 years later, the truth came out. Naria was the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador. There were no dead babies. She was never at the hospital.
It was all part of a campaign to turn Saddam Hussein, at least in the public consciousness, into Adolf Hitler. And the feeling was that they couldn't sell the Gulf War without this. In other words, they had to cheat to win.
The NCI system predicted the lie a decade before anyone admitted to it. Over 100 Americans dead, 500 wounded, 30,000 Iraqis killed, and a bill to U.S. taxpayers of $1.3 trillion. Though it's closer to $1.9 trillion if you factor in the interest we had to pay to borrow the money to fight a war based on a lie. But where did the lie come from? A company that few Americans have ever heard of. But every politician and business person knows. The first Iraq War was the product of the PR agency Hill and Knowlton. And when you look into the history of Hill and Knowlton, you know what you find? A whole lot of dollars and a whole lot of death. Gulf War wasn't the first time Hill and Knowlton weaponized public opinion for profit. New York City, winter of 1953. The executives of America's tobacco companies gathered at the Plaza Hotel. They had a problem. Their own scientists had confirmed that cigarettes cause cancer. The research was simple and clear, and the public was starting to ask questions. And if this information got out, the entire industry would collapse. We're talking billions of dollars, millions of jobs, all gone overnight. So they called in a specialist. John W. Hill, co-founder of Hill and Knowlton, the PR firm that would later orchestrate the lie that dragged us into the Gulf War. Hill understood that doubt was more powerful than truth. People wanted to smoke. They like smoking. But if it was dangerous, most people would stop. But if it might be dangerous, they'd keep smoking. So Hill and Knowlton worked their strategy. They formed the Tobacco Industry Research Committee, which sounds official and scientific, but it wasn't. The committee existed to create doubt, nothing else.
Ah, yes, doubt. The duct tape of corporate crime. Can't prove it's safe? Make sure nobody can prove it's dangerous either. It's a beautiful thing in a completely evil sort of way.
Hill and Knowlton funded studies designed to muddy the waters. They hired scientists who would testify that more research was needed. They paid for ads saying the health risks weren't proven. And they made sure that phrase was heard over and over. No proof. No proof. Journalists believed they had a responsibility to show both sides, so the media gave equal airtime to tobacco-funded researchers and actual cancer specialists. That made it seem like a fair debate. But it wasn't, because one side was lying. 16 years later, an internal memo from Brown and Williamson spelled out the strategy in one sentence.
Doubt is our product, since it is the best means of competing with the body of fact that exists in the minds of the general public.
Doubt is the product, and the plan worked perfectly for years. So let's score it. Cherry-picked data, 5 out of 5. They only published studies that supported their narrative, studies that showed cancer risks were buried or attacked. Authority overload, 5 out of 5. They recruited credentialed scientists. They created fake research committees. They flooded medical journals with industry-funded papers. Suppression of dissent, 5 out of 5. Scientists who published research linking smoking to cancer were harassed, discredited, or had funding pulled. Financial gain, 5 out of 5. The industry made billions of dollars, so every year of delay meant billions of more dollars.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor? Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
The final score? 82 out of 100. Clear signs of a psychological operation. And here's the proof. In the 1990s, whistleblowers leaked 30 million pages of internal tobacco documents. The memos spelled it all out. They knew cigarettes killed people. They knew nicotine was addictive, and they lied for 40 years. The NCI system predicted it decades earlier.
40 years of lying to the public? Those are rookie numbers. The Fed's been doing it since 1913. Audit the Fed!
The fossil fuel industry used the same type of manufactured reality to cast doubt on global warming, which became climate change, which became controversial. And that's perfect. Remember, it doesn't matter if the climate is changing. What matters is that people keep fighting about it. The sugar industry said sugar played no role in diabetes or heart disease. They blamed fat instead. Remember when there was a lot of food labeled low-fat that was marketed as healthy? Well, it wasn't healthy at all. And you know what those low-fat products were loaded with? Sugar. Now, opioids might be the most documented corporate psyop in modern history. False claims that OxyContin wasn't addictive. They paid doctors to lie. Scientific studies were written by PR agencies, not by scientists.
A source tells ABC News that Purdue offered a package that could be worth up to $10 to $12 billion. In a statement, the company explains that while Purdue Pharma is prepared to defend itself vigorously in the opioid litigation, it sees little good coming from years of wasteful litigation and appeals.
Different issues, same high NCI scores, same patterns of manipulation used for 100 years. But when those patterns went digital, there would be consequences that nobody predicted. The same manipulation patterns appear in every controversial topic, including UFO disclosure. January 2025, Jake Barber stepped forward as a whistleblower. Former Air Force Special Ops, combat control, helicopter pilot. He told News Nation he worked on secret UFO retrieval missions for 30 years. Barber described flying a helicopter to recovery sites, lifting objects from the ground. One night he got within 150 feet of something he'd never seen before. An egg-shaped craft, white, metallic, about the size of an SUV, no engine, no thermal signature. News Nation verified his credentials. 3 other military vets backed up his story on camera. Russ Coldhart, the journalist covering it, said the footage was about to change everything. But he said that before. This is why I'm skeptical of UFO whistleblowers. Their stories always have high PsyOps scores. So let's score Jake Barber. Timing, 5 out of 5. The story broke in January right before Trump's inauguration, during massive drone sightings over military bases, the perfect moment for maximum attention. Overuse of novelty, 5 out of 5. Look for hyperbolic words and phrases like unprecedented, groundbreaking, could change the world. Uniform messaging, 4 out of 5. Non-human craft, non-human biologics, government secrecy. All news reports use the same wording. Financial gain, 5 out of 5. Barber formed a company called Skywatchers LLC around the time he came out as a whistleblower. His company will conduct scientific studies of anomalous aerial phenomena. Now, we don't know whether he'll charge a fee for this, but get ready to have your mind blown. He's working on a book.
There's always a book.
There's always a book. Missing information, 4 out of 5. News Nation teased footage but showed very little of it. There's no way to verify it. Cherry-picked data, 4 out of 5. Jake Barber doesn't have the training for covert ops, but he says he'll testify under oath. Also, that video footage, it wasn't his.
And spaceship that looks like it belongs to Mork from Ork, 5 out of Nanu.
The score, 63 out of 100. Strong likelihood of a psyop. But here's the complication. A high score means manipulation, not true or false. The reality of UFOs comes down to one of three things. 1, disclosure is real, but it's being packaged, meaning the government is revealing the truth, but using psyop techniques to control how, when, and what we're allowed to know. Option 2, it's a full psyop. Classified aircraft testing needs a cover story. UFOs are perfect. As long as we're debating whether a craft is from Zeta Reticuli or Lisa, we're not asking Lockheed or Raytheon what they're up to. Option 3, it's a distraction. Remember all the drones flying over the bases for weeks? That was the real story. But a UFO story pops up and captures attention. And notice how the drone story just vaporized? Since 2017, this disclosure narrative has been building. David Grush, Lou Elizondo, congressional hearings, leaked videos. Each story scores high for manipulation tactics, but each could still contain some truth. And that's the gray area, where facts and psyops blend together, where high scores don't give you easy answers. The NCI score shows you how information is delivered. You still have to decide whether you believe it or not. And that's what makes this so hard. Who can you trust to tell you the truth? Psychological operations are weapons being used against you. So use the NCI scoring system as a countermeasure to manipulation. It's a 20-point test. That's it. It's just a number. No partisan politics, no agenda. Download it now and start using it on news coverage, corporate messaging, government statements, social media campaigns, anything. Once you see the pattern, you'll see it everywhere. Every news story will look suspicious. Every expert will seem bought. And everything you hear will sound manufactured. And that's exactly what the real power in America wants. They want us suspicious of each other. They want us divided, because that division creates paralysis. And that is a meta-psyop. Now, I want you to really hear what I'm about to tell you. Every time you fight about politics on Facebook or X or anywhere, you are being manipulated. So stop it. Remember, anger gets more clicks. And Americans hating each other means we're not watching the powerful, and we're not asking the real questions.
Like what really happened to Epstein?
I told you we're not gonna...
Release the files!
But that's exactly my point. We need to focus on the things that unite us, not divide us.
Yeah, what you talking about, human?
Think of it this way. 2 neighbors. One is a stuffy conservative. The other is a bleeding heart liberal. Now, those 2 neighbors have very different views on abortion, education, guns, just about everything. So they fight about all those things.
Yeah, I think I had those guys over for Thanksgiving. Exhausting, sheesh.
Right. But you know what those 2 neighbors with very different political opinions want? They both want to know the truth about UFOs. They both want to know the truth about COVID.
The truth about Epstein!
That's exactly right. It's that simple. That's what unites us. The truth.
Well, that and bacon.
You're stepping all over my dramatic ending, pal.
I'm just saying, everybody loves bacon. Let's start a Bacon Unites movement. Pork, nature's candy.
Psychological operations are running all around us all the time. Everyone is trying to control how you think. But I gave you a tool to fight back, and I showed you how it works. What you do now is up to you. And I don't think I can end with a better message than Sean does in his own Psyop series.
This series started by asking who is pulling the strings. Maybe the real question should be, why do we keep handing them over?